And in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and up to 2020, there were a number of budgets that were presented. And in each of those budgets, the then Minister of Finance made statements about what would be done in the health sector. And I want to recap some of those things. And I want to say, and I want to ask the honorable members over there, where are these programs? So let's go through them. In 2015, one of the things that they promised was that they would set up a pediatric cardiac program at the Georgetown Hospital. And I want to ask, where is that program? It was there in 2015. Up to now, nothing could be produced by the APNU and AFC. We, Mr. Speaker, we have started putting back a program that we had before, which they dismantled. We used to do pediatric cardiac surgeries in this country, and they dismantled it. And now we have to rebuild it. And that's what we're doing. In 2016, Mr. Speaker, they promised us that they would bring a commission of inquiry to study suicide prevention. Well, 2016 came and went, and nothing was delivered. No suicide commission, another broken promise, another promise that went unfulfilled. In 2016, in the budget, they said they would have spent 1.9 billion Guyana dollars for the construction of a state-of-the-art specialty hospital at Liliandal. This was a PPP project that we started, and shortly after they put it in the budget, by the next year, they cancel it out of the budget. No more specialty hospital. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, they also put in their budget that they will build a 10-bed cardiac theater, whatever that means. This was another broken promise, because after their tenure, there's no 10-bed theater at the Georgetown Hospital. Mr. Speaker, they also promised to have a new lab at the Food and Drug Administration, and they budgeted $110 million for the establishment of that lab. But here again, monies were spent, no lab is in existence. No promise. This was another promise that they couldn't deliver on. In 2017, they promised a mental health institute. Where is the mental health institute? Again, another broken promise. In 2018, they told the people of the East Coast they are going to rehabilitate the C.C. Nicholson Hospital. Where is the rehabilitation? Nothing was done. Another broken promise. In 2019, they promised the construction of a new accident and emergency at the Georgetown Public Hospital. Where is the new accident and emergency? Another broken promise. Nothing was delivered. In 2019 again, in the budget, they promised that they're going to deliver a state-of-the-art trauma center. Where is this trauma center? And again, another broken promise, and nothing was delivered. This, Mr. Speaker, is their legacy. This, Mr. Speaker, is a lot of promises, but absolutely no delivery. This is what incompetence and mismanagement looks like. That is why, Mr. Speaker, they are on that side of the House. Mr. Speaker, when you couple this litany of failures with the massive drug shortages that they had in the system, with the Sussex Street drug bond scandal, with the procurement scandals, with what happened at Ocean View, the fiasco over there, with how they shut down the National Ophthalmology Center, how they had no audited accounts at the Georgetown Public Hospital for 5 years. This, Mr. Speaker, is mismanagement, and this is the legacy of the PNC, AFC, and all of them who call themselves APNU. This is what they want us to forget. But we will not forget this sorry past. But our task today is not only to fix what they have left, this broken system, but we are going to fix it and transform it into a world-class healthcare system. Mr. Speaker, fixing the primary healthcare system. Between 2021 and 2022, we have upgraded more than 250 health centers and health posts in every single region of Guyana. We have collaborated with the Pan American Health Organization and developed a comprehensive package of services where we will be able to deliver more than 216 interventions at health centers and health posts across this country. Mr. Speaker, among these interventions would be maternal and child health care, would be working to put better diagnosis for infectious diseases, to also put better diagnosis for chronic non-communicable diseases, to provide immunization for our children across this country, and to make sure that we can also provide eye screening, dental checkups, and screening for hearing impairments. Mr. Speaker, for eye screening, just last year, we started the distribution of 4,500 spectacles to communities in the hinterland. And just to put it in perspective, a spectacle will probably cost between 20 to 30,000 Guyana dollars. We are giving them away for free in the hinterland of Guyana. And as if that is not enough, Mr. Speaker, we have sent our ophthalmologists into the regions where we are screening people who would have eye problems, such as cataract, and we make a short list and we bring them out to the Port Morant Hospital, the same one that was neglected by the APNU, and we are doing cataract surgery for those patients. Right now, hundreds of patients have already benefited from that service, and now people are quite satisfied with the kind of eye care they are getting from the Ministry of Health. Mr. Speaker, up to last year, if you had to get a hearing aid, it would have cost a patient 65,000 Guyana dollars for a hearing aid. We were able to screen more than 500 persons across this country, and we give them hearing aid free of cost. And in this budget, we would be providing another 1,000 hearing aids for persons who need such service. Mr. Speaker, to deliver the services at our health posts and health centers, because under the APNU, not much training was done for health personnel. And over the last 2 years alone, 2 years alone, we have trained more than 200 community health workers. So much so that in every health center or health post in regions 9 and 1, there are at least 2 community health workers at each of those centers. This is what progress looks like. But not only that, we have given to these health centers rapid kits that can do all types of diagnoses. So we have moved from where we used to do microscopy for malaria to now where you can do rapid testing for malaria. And this type of testing is going to be rolled out at all such centers. And once we diagnose someone with whatever ailment they have, we have all the medicines to make sure that they are treated properly at the health center. In addition, Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 years, the Ministry of Health would have provided to the hinterland communities, to health centers and to hospitals, approximately 31 ATVs, 14 ambulances, 24 boats, and 9 motorcycles, so that we can improve transportation of the medical personnel and moving of patients. This, Mr. Speaker, is what progress looks like. They had 5 years and they couldn't even deliver 5 ambulances. We were able to do 14 ambulances in just 2 years. Mr. Speaker, but all that I just spoke about was fixing the things that they broke. What we have been able to do, because as I said, we want to transform what we are doing from the rudimentary to a world-class system. And to do this, it requires innovation, and it requires the application of technology. And with this in mind, the government of Guyana has started a remote e-medicine clinic at Napi, at Pariquara, at Yupukari, and at Guns. Now, what is this telemedicine? Telemedicine that we have put in there, we have a computer at each one of these sites, and in that computer we have an electronic health record system, and the computers are connected to the internet through satellite, and it also has internet-enabled devices, and it is powered by solar energy. Now let me give you an example of the capability of the system that we have just put in. Guns is probably about 500 miles away from Georgetown. What we can do when a patient goes to the community health worker at Guns, we are able now, first of all, talk to the community health worker. They put in their information. Having put in that information, if she cannot solve the problem, then she can dial up a doctor either at the Latham Hospital or dial up a doctor at the Georgetown Public Hospital. When that doctor comes on screen in real time, if the doctor would like to examine the eye, you can have the camera look at the eye. If they want to examine the ears, we can do so, the mouth. Whatever it is, we can examine that. And if the doctor would like to hear the heartbeat of the patient that is located 500 miles away, then all you need to do is put the stethoscope and he would hear the heart song 500 miles away in Georgetown. And we would be able to make the diagnosis. If we need to do an ECG, we will be able to do that ECG from guns and coordinated by the doctors at the Georgetown Hospital. If we need to do an ultrasound, the ultrasound probes that we have, we will be able, the community health worker would put the ultrasound probe over the abdomen of the patient, and the doctor at the Georgetown Hospital would be able to see the image in Georgetown. This, Mr. Speaker, is what progress looks like. This is what the new system that we are building. And we don't have it at one place. We have it right now as a pilot in 4 communities in Region 9. And the plan in this budget is that we'll be expanding that so that more and more people can benefit from such service. Mr. Speaker, what about district hospitals? One of the things that we noticed in a lot of our district hospitals was that many of them did not have surgical theaters. And because of that,
Honorable Minister, you'll need an extension to continue to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Etchell. Honorable Minister, yes, you may continue to conclude.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we start fixing the district hospitals. We have added new theaters. Right now, there are about 8 new theaters that have been constructed in different parts of the country. But, Mr. Speaker, it's not only that. Last year, we started putting in X-rays. We have 13 new X-rays that would be installed between now and the next 6 months. They would all be installed, and all of them would be digital X-rays. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, we would be building 6 new regional hospitals. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, one of the hospitals would be at Lima, one would be at Dekendron, one would be at Diamond, one would be at Enmore, one would be at Bath, one would be at number 75. And at each of these hospitals, they would have about 75 inpatient beds. We would also have modern theaters, new accident and emergency, new imaging suite, including in each one of them a CT scan so that we can do better imaging. In addition to this 6 hospitals, we'll be adding a 7th at Bartica, and already we have started the design for that hospital, and it would have similar amenities. Mr. Speaker, it's the project started. What do you want me to do? Don't talk about it? I am very proud of it. Yes, we got 7 hospitals now. And in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, we have the pediatric and maternal hospital, which I talked about last year too. That's 256 beds. And it's a top referral hospital when it would be concluded. Mr. Speaker, apart from these hospitals, we also would be introducing new types of services, including what we call telediagnostics, or teleophthalmology, teleradiology, and telepathology. This would cause the turnaround time for samples sent to the labs to be much shorter. Our collaboration with Mount Sinai is going to see operational efficiency at the Georgetown Hospital improve drastically so that patients can have better comfort when they go there. Mr. Speaker, we are also working on our oncology suite, new cardiovascular services. We are also going to be introducing new guidelines for diabetes. In another month or so, you will see new national guidelines for diabetes. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Finance mentioned the first diabetic center. I can proudly say that that center is now operational at Lusignan. Mr. Speaker, we have many things to be proud of. We have seen, starting from this month, that we will be increasing the salaries for nurses, doctors, and every clinical person working in the health sector. A doctor who has graduated 3 years after graduation would now receive a salary of $450,000. A nurse midwife would now get 220,000 Ghana dollars. And guess what, Mr. Speaker? If you go to their manifesto, this manifesto here is what they said. They said APNU AFC commits to implementing the following recommendation. And the second recommendation, health services including the organized export of nurses. They want to export nurses. We are trying to train our nurses and retain them by paying them better. And that is what we'll start doing from this month. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, starting in the first quarter of this year, we'll be training 1,000 nurses for the health sector. Mr. Speaker, this is what, when we talk about progress and what we have been doing in the health sector, this is what we have been doing. And I don't have enough time to talk about all the other programs. But I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I want to thank the Honorable Finance Minister and commend this budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Health. And now for the Honorable Member, Mr. Sherwin Holder. You may proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wouldn't waste too much time responding to this minister's shallow presentation. All I would say is, if hypocrite was a person, you know, the most telling thing from the minister's presentation was his comment that no amount of criticism of the budget will change a single number. You know, that's the most telling thing about the difference between us over here and you over there. In the pursuit of one Guyana, it speaks about inclusivity. It's very telling. It got to affect y'all. It must affect y'all. I'm happy y'all responded. Very happy. You know, it's, Mr. Speaker, I beg your protection. You know, the truth hurts. The truth hurts. Mr. Speaker, Guyana is a blessed country. Guyana is a blessed country. We are blessed in the sense of our diversity, 6 races with different religious beliefs, culture, and way of life. And a way of life forged together through various struggles to emerge as one people. We are blessed as to have bountiful resources, any one of which, if managed prudently, can deliver a better quality of life for all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, a wide cross-section of Guyanese, especially our young people, across the political divide, believe that our failure as a nation to realize our true potential lies with the polarization of our society by the two elephants in the form of political parties and their inability to work together in the best interests of all. Noting these sentiments, the 2015 coalition government took a different path, the path of inclusivity, the path of non-discrimination, the path on which the resources of this country would have been distributed in an equitable manner, the path on which every Guyanese felt that they were included in the development of this country, and where there was a good life on the horizon for all. Mr. Speaker, this translated into vast improvements in health, not only in the renovation of existing facilities and construction of new facilities, but more importantly, improvement in the actual quality of service and access available to all Guyanese. It translated into a better delivery of education, which we clearly are still benefiting from today. Mr. Speaker, our vision and management of the public security sector saw the professionalization of the Guyana police force. There was a stranglehold on drugs. Executions were almost zero. Serious crimes were being solved. And the general conduct of the force was heading in the right direction. The coalition era saw rapid infrastructural development in the form of proper highway roads, community roads, farm-to-market roads, installation of sluices and drainage pumps, etc., all over Guyana without discrimination. Mr. Speaker, I need not explain what we did in youth and sports, as MP Christopher Jones would have been explicit. Mr. Speaker, what we did for public servants, pensioners, I just heard the Honorable Minister trying to bring forward some belated increases for nurses after we would have had to press them and almost throw them overboard in the sea before they actually could have come forward with something for dear nurses and public servants. Mr. Speaker, as limited as the resources were, through prudent management, the coalition was able to breathe new life into this country and to undertake some of the initiatives that the PPP were not able to undertake with the same level of resources. Mr. Speaker, the coalition restored some level of unity, civility, and hope to our society. But the greatest hope, Comrade Speaker, emanated from expectation of what was on the near horizon. What was on the near horizon? Hundreds of billions in revenue from our newfound wealth. Guyana has become a major oil-producing nation, and with a growth of 63.2%, has undisputedly become the fastest-growing economy in the world. But, Mr. Speaker, what does that mean for the small population of about 750,000 people who inhabited this land? Farmers, teachers, nurses, doctors, fishermen, vendors, and even students. Mr. Speaker, our oil wells are currently producing at a rate of over 340,000 barrels per day. That production will soon climb to above 600,000 barrels per day. It therefore means, Mr. Speaker, that as bloated as the voters list is, very soon there will be a barrel, at least one barrel of oil produced every day for every name on that list. Mr. Speaker, the statistics is clear. It's a clear indication that a good life for all Guyanese can be achieved, but it requires a government. It requires a government that has a clear vision and a plan. It requires a government that is willing to put the interests of Guyanese first and above their own personal ambitions and that of their friends, families, and favorites, a term that you all don't like on that side of the house. Mr. Speaker, the PPP's handling of our forced oil budget was an absolute disaster. After their poor handling of the economy in 2020-2021, 2022 presented a golden opportunity to rebound, and to place Guyanese on track to enjoy one of the highest living standards in the world. Instead, through their mismanagement, cronyism, and corruption, 2022 was one of the toughest years for the poor and working class families across Guyana. Mr. Speaker, 2022 saw the average Guyanese family struggling to make ends meet as the cost of living spiraled out of control. Mr. Speaker, government ministers seem comfortable in saying to the Guyanese people that it's only food prices that saw a high inflation rate. That's okay for them because their bread is well buttered. When they leave Parliament, when they leave this very house and go to their respective homes, there is food awaiting them on the table. But what they miss, Comrade Speaker, is that the issue of food prices is the most critical issue in the homes of the average Guyanese family. Mr. Speaker, the government claims that food prices were inflated by 14.1%, and this spans out from consideration of a whole range of food items. But if you look deeper, Mr. Speaker, and analyze the increase of critical everyday items, you will recognize that some of these items increased by as much as 50 to 70%. Mr. Speaker, that is a fact. Rice, Mr. Speaker, was around $1,200 for 25 pounds last year. Currently, the price is about $2,100. Can you calculate the increase, Mr. Speaker? Can you calculate? They say we don't know much. I hope you can calculate it, Comrade Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, flour, oil, that Mr. McCoy, the honorable member, I don't know where he bought his special oil from. Mr. Speaker, it would be interesting if he could have stated where he would have purchased that special bottle of oil and the use of that oil. Mr. Speaker, when you visit the market these days, you got to walk with $5,000 to $10,000. A simple cabbage will cost about $1,000 to $1,200. You can't dispute these facts, Comrade Speaker. Those cannot be disputed. Mr. Speaker, the government seems oblivious to these facts. To put a shade over it, the government says, well, prices are stable. Mr. Speaker, stable by no definition means affordable. You know what really frets me, Mr. Speaker? When Gordon Mosley posts on his page, the price of chicken in Baltic is $700 per pound. Their PR machinery, DPI, and Chronicle, quick to say that, that is not so. Come by Border Market on Sunday at 3 p.m. and you'll get it for $500. What a travesty. This is a real travesty, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, budget 2023, while it is 41.4% bigger, it is the same vacuous document being regurgitated from 2022 and beyond. There are two major projects as highlighted by the Honorable Sonia Parag yesterday. The Harbour Bridge, for which plans have been drawn by the coalition government between 2015 to 2020, and then by the PPP since 2020. Mr. Speaker, there is no longer anything flattering or exciting about this, except that the bridge has become the subject of controversy to the point where they seem to have announced its construction before settling on where the finances will come from and what percentage kickback will be available. Mr. Speaker,
from the moment the vice media clip
of Mr. Su in the VP's living room surfaced, these projects began to collapse. Where is Su is the question we must ask. Mr. Speaker, on the 11th of June, the VP called for an investigation. On the 12th of June, that was followed by His Excellency. On the 13th of June, the Honorable Minister, I don't see him in the House, Minister Ben, agreed that there should be an investigation. Today, in January of 2023, we're yet to see the launch of an investigation. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, yes, where is Sue? I turn to the second major project, Mr. Speaker, and that's the gas to shore project. The PPP has a long record of incompetence and mismanagement when it comes to youth projects. Skeldon Factory, fiber optic, Amelia Falls, my colleagues made mention of it. And so, Mr. Speaker, based on their actions in relation to the Wales Gas to Shore project and the secrecy surrounding it, we know that it is another tangled web. Mr. Speaker, the PPP seems to see natural gas as a mere byproduct of oil production rather than a valuable resource of itself. Why else would you see the type of carelessness that has plagued anything to do with the Guyana's natural gas industry? The centerpiece of this mismanagement is the gas to energy project, which is at the center of one of the most controversial pieces of infrastructure in Guyana's history. The coalition conducted an initial feasibility study to assess the value of a pipeline and its best potential. The PPP tore up the recommendations of that study, situating the pipeline at Wales, which cost the country at least an extra $100 million because it is as far from the most ideal location. If that weren't bad enough, Mr. Speaker, they have refused to conduct an updated feasibility study, even though the cost of the pipeline has tripled, Comrade Speaker, since that study was conducted. In what world does a major infrastructural project triple in costs and a government proceeds without urgent reassessment? Mr. Speaker, we have spoken about containerization of natural gas, which could have saved hundreds of millions of dollars, and which an updated feasibility study will help the nation better appreciate. But the PPP is not interested in sober decision-making and thoughtful planning. They prefer chaos. Why do they prefer chaos? Because with chaos comes confusion. And in confusion, there can be secrecy. And we know what else can be derived from that secrecy. There are so many secrets in the gas to shore energy project that it's hard to keep track, Comrade Speaker. Here are a few. What is the unit cost of the gas pipeline? What is the unit cost of the gas the pipeline will supply Guyana? 2, where is the agreement between the government of Guyana and ExxonMobil for the construction of this pipeline? 3, what is the final cost of this pipeline and what provisions are in place to address any cost overruns? It would seem to me, Comrade Speaker, it would seem to me to be utterly crazy to invest over $2 billion on every project without basic questions like these being answered. This is nearly triple the cost of Amelia Falls hydro project, and we know what a disaster that was. This energy project dwarfs Skeldon, and we know what a disaster that was. Are we going to keep repeating these disasters forever? If this was the worst of it, that would be bad enough. But this natural gas energy project is riddled with frightening concerns. Here is another one, Comrade Speaker. Why are we working with a Venezuelan company to construct the gas to energy plant, given the national security concern? Even if the company does its duty faithfully, what is to stop a Venezuelan agent infiltrating the project and sabotaging it? On the subject of this plant, we observed that a contract for consultancy services have been signed between Engineers India Limited and Guyana Power and Gas Inc. But what is Guyana Power and Gas Inc.? What is it? If this company is intended to operate the plant, why has GPL been bypassed? In fact, what is the scope of this new company's powers? This is the type of broad daylight upending of existing systems and institutions that the PPP is famous for. I want to close on this issue with the biggest act of bypass we have seen to date, which is the government's claim that it intends to finance a stake in the gas-to-shore pipeline directly from Coast Oil. Mr. Speaker, this arrangement bypasses the very house we stand in, rendering the National Assembly irrelevant when the government seeks to finance major infrastructure projects. Mr. Speaker, the Public Procurement Commission, Auditor General, Public Accounts Committee are all sidelined in this arrangement. The government is violating the Guyanese Constitution and the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act in a casual, cold, and malicious way. Our neighbors in Venezuela experimented with this type of funding and totally lost control of their finances. Are we to repeat their mistakes, Comrade Speaker? Clearly, the PPP cannot be trusted with Guyana's natural gas sector, and it's an obstacle in the way of progress and development. I now turn to oil. Mr. Speaker, the PPP has turned a bumper year for oil revenues into a bumper year for fear of about the management.
Mr. Speaker.
Fear of a...
Mr. Speaker. Point of order.
Honorable Minister, yes, please state that.
40, subclause 1. I ask that the honourable member be very careful with reference to and aspersions and allegations or innuendos in relation to a foreign territory which we have a border issue with. The content of speeches warns us to be sensitive on these issues, but in particular with Venezuela, I ask the honourable member to be responsible, sir. I'm asking for him to be responsible in the innuendos he's throwing out to do with a country we have a border issue with, and we're before the International Court of Justice right now. Such statements could cause problems at the World Court, and therefore asking the member to be sensitive and careful and not reckless.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mr. Holder, I allowed the Honorable Minister to make the observation. I personally feel you have a right to traverse that area, but experience teaches wisdom, and among the most experienced people in here are the Honorable Member Kem Raj and Gail and myself. So I'm sure you are a quick learner. Please proceed.
Duly noted, Comrade Speaker. The only question I would ask the Honorable Minister is if she was... Let me move on. Mr. Speaker, the PPP has turned a bumper year for oil revenue into a bumper year for fear about the management of the oil industry. It is truly stunning how many controversies they generated in 2022 with their shady tactics and disdain for transparency and accountability. Guyanese are starting to understand that they are in for a rocky road when it comes to the oil industry, and that nothing can be taken for granted, and that constant vigilance will be a necessity. Even basic things like auditing Exxon Cost Oil expenses became the source of public outrage and concern. Recall that the PPP allowed the audit window for over $7 billion of Cost Oil expenses to elapse. So clueless, Comrade Speaker, were they about the proper management of an oil and gas industry. The Guyana government had to meekly ask for an extension, which was a national humiliation. They have subsequently caused the nation to be apprehensive, and that the audit will meet even the most reasonable expectation while concealing its results for months. On the other hand, they have refused to enforce the requirements for full coverage insurance that Exxon has signed on to in the Guyana's development permits, raising the specter of an unmitigated disaster should there be a major oil spill. We saw Guyana's forest oil spill last year as well, and no report on it has been publicly ventilated so the nation better understands, so that the nation can better understand the risks in its face. These are the types of concerns that keep vigilant citizens awake at night. We know that oil is a tricky man to manage and have seen many nations fall foul of poor governance in the sector. Will 2023 bring more of the same? Sadly, this is likely to be the case as the PPP is still to make public the new model production sharing agreement. Already, they have started the year off on the wrong foot. There is still time for the PPP to get its act together in the interests of all Guyanese. We urge them to put their country and citizens first. Mr. Speaker, I turn my attention to region number 2. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2023 is a colossal failure for the people of region number 2. While the Cinderella County and the Cinderella region has traditionally voted in a majority for the PPP, for the People's Progressive Party, they continue to treat them like a stepchild. Mr. Speaker, there is nothing in this budget that is transformational for the region. Nothing in this $750 billion budget that will cause the people of Region 2 to say it is progressing. Where is the regional agriculture plan? Where is the plan to turn around the ailing rice industry? Where is the plan to give the rice farmers the assurance that 2023 will be a productive year for them and that the millers will not continue to take advantage of them and the price of paddy will allow them to be able to put food on their tables and to live a comfortable life, at least for 2023. Mr. Speaker, our farmers are struggling. Many have loans which they are unable to service. Many rice farmers are still owed 2 to 3 crops by the millers. The PPP is doing absolutely nothing for them. They love to boast about the one-off flood relief grant as though it was an initiative to propel and advance the rice industry. It has not. Additionally, many farmers complain of being discriminated against and not receiving the grant. Mr. Speaker, there are several social media posts and videos to prove this fact. Many farmers complain that the assistance the government promised in 2022 in the form of fertilizer did not arrive at the time when the fertilizer was needed, and so the effectiveness was extremely poor. Mr. Speaker, I had to chuckle when I heard the minister boast about 2 concrete strips they call drying floors for rice farmers in a budget of almost $1 trillion. Surely that cannot be the prosperity that this government is building for tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, there are 5 programs that fall under the regional administration, agriculture being one of them. When you examine both recurrent and capital expense, there is a clear indication that the budgetary sums will impoverish our already depressed farmers and other producers of crops and livestock. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, there was little or no progress in maintenance of farm-to-market roads, other roads, and trenches. Honorable Minister Mustafa will soon take the podium and twist all the figures, while Minister Edghill will provide the usual sermon to tell this nation that they inherited dilapidated roads and how many farm-to-market roads they would have done to benefit farmers. Mr. Speaker, I'm tempted to tell them in advance to shut the hell up and go to the region and find these roads wherever they are. But I will not. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable
yes,
Minister.
Sir. I rise in a point of order, content of speech. The gentleman just said, shut the hell up. That's what he told Minister Mustafa. That's what he said, sir.
Honorable Minister, I always take the speaker as speaking to the speaker. The speaker speaks to the speaker. And throughout all the debates, I remind people When they say, you do this, they're admonishing the speaker. So I'm allowing him to tell the speaker to shut the M, right? But I'm listening, right?
Mr. Speaker, I hope I can get back my time.
If you continue to incur interruptions, I would get tested to give you back your time. But so far, I note the interruptions for everyone.
Thank you, Comrade Speaker. You know, and I'm happy that Minister Edgell is offended. Minister Edgell, don't go away. I have a few for you. It might be a good thing that if we can recall in budget 2022, over 120 roads which would have been identified for completion by the very minister who just walked out. He obviously doesn't want to hear and to face the facts. Mr. Speaker, I have visited a majority of those roads identified, and more than 50% of them have not been completed. More than 25% of them are yet to begin. And so I would be happy if the minister could have stayed and answered a few questions. Mr. Speaker, not surprisingly, the works have not been completed, and in many cases, not even started. And when you look at the budget estimates, Comrade Speaker, when you look at the budget estimates, you will notice that they would have spent almost every dollar allocated. How is that possible? How is that possible? Mr. Speaker, you know, that is like the $22 million that was given to that contractor that the minister came out and tried to curse
But here you're going to have to be careful, because you're saying given to. As far as I know, under all governments, mobilization advances are provided. So it makes like if the minister give this person mobilization, right? Let's talk about the mobilization given.
Provided. Mr. Speaker, the PPP thrives. They thrive on corruption. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, again, the Honorable Member Mr. Ramjatan being a senior person, and he was quoting from a book that mentioned corruption, right? Here now is a direct claim about corruption against the government, right? Please withdraw that.
I withdraw, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the PPP thrives on programs that are not consistent with the principles of transparency and accountability. Mr. Speaker, just last week, and good governance, thank you. Just last week, our councillors asked for the projects submitted by the regions for consideration in the budget. They can't get it. Throughout the year, we ask for bill of quantities for projects. We can't get it. Because if they give it to us, their kickback schemes will be exposed. It is all about PPP, friends, family, and favorites. Mr. Speaker, for the period 2015 to 2020, all contractors were given a piece of the pie. When we left office, there were about 15 Afro contractors and about double the amount of Indo contractors. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, only about only two Afro-Guyanese contractors were given contracts. One got $1 million contract and the other got a measly $500,000 contracts, while others were given tens and tens of millions. Mr. Speaker, in the region there is a contractor now that has over $1 billion, and several other friends and family of the PPP that are over $500 million and counting. Mr. Speaker, even the seasoned contractors who would have been both for over 20 years within the region are not given contracts. It's all about friends, families, and...
Okay, again, I don't know about giving, right? This is imputation. As far as I know, there is a bidding process. There is nobody in government who gives out a contract walking around handing out contracts. As far as I know, and it hasn't changed from government to government, is that advertisements, central tender board, ministry tender board, regional tender boards are all in the process. So please, I consider what you're talking about imputing.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, since the PPP took office, there has been an unwillingness in their approach to consultation for projects to be identified and works to be done in communities. So much so that the NDCs have indicated that their involvement amounts virtually to zero, and that they are not even given the bill of quantities so that they can at least monitor the projects. Mr. Speaker, Hoppy Street in Dartmouth, Hoppy Street rehabilitation in Dartmouth is a typical example. They refused to consult with our 5 councillors there. They refused to speak with the residents there, and so they went ahead and changed the road from an asphaltic surface to a concrete surface. Now the road is a foot high above the shoulders. It is too narrow for 2 vehicles to pass. Residents have a major problem getting their vehicles in and out of their yards. And after I would have exposed this scheme, Comrade Speaker, they belatedly tried to slope the edge. And you know concrete don't join, Comrade Speaker. And to the point where it's so sloped that an elderly resident slipped and fell and was injured, Comrade Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. And I know to continue, we have to join 5 minutes onto your time. It's now 2:48, so the 4 minutes of interruption that you've had, you've gotten back. Honorable Member, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Speaker, I move that the Honorable Member be given 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable Member, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the perpendicular road, the sideline dam that gives access to that road was dug up, and I presume it was part of the project. But now the residents are told that it is no longer part of that project. There is no money there to complete that part, so it's left just like that, dug up and left just in that state. And this is the identical thing. Mr. Speaker, I want to suspect that this unfinished section will provide the kickbacks that they so desire, as a new contract will be created to deal with that part of the road. And the identical thing was done at Affiance, at School Street Affiance. Comrade Speaker, I'm speaking from experience. I visited these contracts and interacted with the people there. Comrade Speaker, there was a $58 million contract there to do the entire street that runs from north to south. From north to south. $58 million. Suddenly, in the execution of the contract, only a section of the road was done. The $58 million was used up, and then a further $19 million was added for the other section. Mr. Speaker, this is the PPP at its best. Mr. Speaker, the health service delivery in the region is at its lowest. Healthcare workers have been expressing great dissatisfaction in the way the government manages these services. Allocations made for the purchase of supplies and pieces of equipment to enhance health services in the region are yet to be delivered, and in some cases, where delivered, were substandard. Mr. Speaker, a typical example was the river ambulance purchased by the government at the tune of $24 million, which was clearly not up to standard, as was observed and commented on by hundreds of Guyanese on the Facebook post featuring the Minister of Health cutting ribbons. Mr. Speaker, persons were quick to draw to the government attention that several proper ambulances were commissioned by the APNU AFC former minister, Volder Lawrence, in Bartica and Linden, to the tune of just $11 million versus their $24 million. But this is the PPP, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Speaker, the CHW program pioneered by Comrade Volder Lawrence, again, was a program aimed at improving health care within the region. Comrade Speaker, the PPP disbanded that program and ventured into rebranding it, calling it nursing assistant now. Now, you know, whether you call it community health worker, nursing assistant, it's virtually the same thing. But if Comrade Mahadio wants to claim, and the minister wants to claim that it's a different program and it's so much more advanced, I dare say to them that that cannot be the case with a program which sees persons with no experience being brought in and trained for only 13 months, reducing the program, the time of training to only 13 months. And then you call them, you know, or you claim that it's more advanced. Mr. Speaker, there are so many more things that are going wrong within the region, and time would not permit me to mention all of them. In local governance in the area of public security, crime spiraling out of control, hotspots being created, I will not venture into those at this time. But in concluding, Mr. Speaker, Budget 2022 lacks vision, a comprehensive plan to transform region, and a comprehensive plan to transform Region 2. As Comrade Amanza rightfully said, the resources are available, but the competence is lacking, Mr. Speaker. As I travel the region, the sentiments that I receive is that the cost of living is killing people, and the budget has nothing for them. I spoke with a 36-year-old single mother, Padmini, from the village of Better Success, who works 2 jobs in order to send her young 16-year-old daughter to UG, and who is paying a rent of $60,000 for an apartment to stay in. She expressed that she was just recently told that due to an increase in cost of living, the rent will now be increased to $70,000. Mr. Speaker, it is these and other reasons that the coalition has declared that it will make UG free again, that it will write off students' loan, that it will provide students stipend to help vulnerable mothers like Padmini. Mr. Speaker, with a $750 billion budget, transformational projects like University of Guyana campus in Region 2 is what we expected to see. We expected to see a shore base being established to deal with the issues of unemployment rather than a call center, the region being reduced to call center jobs and 40,000 temporary jobs. Mr. Speaker, in this budget, the PPP seems to think that the only jobs that are...
We're now about 2 minutes over the 5 minutes. I thought you were just about to wind down. Please.
Wrapping up, Mr. Speaker. Wrapping up, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to close by saying we would have supported this budget, and the people of Region 2 and the people of this country would have supported this budget if there was a vision and a plan to bring real development and real change to the lives of all Guyanese. In this current construct, I cannot, and we cannot support this budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker. Before I call on the Honorable Minister of Education, I just want to remind those who are watching our feed and making some comments. We are seeing a lot of race baiting and words that are not parliamentary and very abusive online. And to our viewers, if you continue this way, we will shut down the commentary online. So please, those persons who are making the comments online, keep it very respectful and to ensure that you can make your comments without being nasty. Honorable Minister of Education, it's now your turn. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Sir, perhaps we should be examining what example we ourselves might be setting to the viewers online. I know there is a young man who did not even know that we were sitting in this house. He thought we were at National Assembly. I won't call your name, who's horrified at the exchanges here. And this is not a Sunday school. This is a parliament. parler means to speak. But there has to be a limit to what we ourselves as individuals believe is acceptable in this house. What is our duty here? And I like the fact that we have young persons on the other side. In fact, that's what I said to the young chairman, young looking chairman when he was elected. And I have to be hopeful that given that he has older guidance, and I have served with Mr. Norton, that there will be some guidance and correction on this type of presentation in the House. Mr. Speaker, there's not much that we have been able to agree on. But I hope that we can agree that this was a well-crafted budget and that the staff of the Ministry of Finance, the minister who performed these duties, did a fantastic job. I particularly like that we have a female director of budget. There have been entire world conferences focused on how women should be involved in the budgetary planning process. And you see when you have that involvement, the various sensitivities throughout the budget. So I'd like to congratulate particularly the Director of Budget and her staff, Ms. Sonia Rupnath. And while we have not been able, Mr. Speaker, to agree on much, I think we can agree in this House that certain issues cannot be made a punchline. The issue of domestic violence, whether from the podium or from heckles, cannot be made a punchline. In this House, if we are to believe the worldwide statistics, that Guyana has not escaped, 1 out of every 3 women is a victim, was a victim, right in this House. If we are to believe those statistics, we have had victims. And it is both an insult to persons who are currently undergoing hardships in their domestic relationships, as well as frightening to them if we will make issues like that in this House, whether from the podium or as heckles, a punchline. So at least that we can agree on, I hope. I said we cannot make it a punchline. Own it yourself. Decide you are not going to make this a punchline, each individual here, and let's carry on from there. The other thing I hope we can agree, sir, is that education is valuable and that the only way to permanently and certainly change the trajectory of any country and the fortunes of any family and community would be to ensure that any kind of provision that is aimed towards educating communities or individuals is supported. If we cannot agree on those, then we need to have a relook at what our role might be or what we believe our role might be in this House. Sir, I'll begin with the University of Guyana, and attending all these discussions has to be a level of honesty. The honorable member who spoke just before me ended on the University of Guyana and their promises and plans for the students of the University of Guyana, the PPP Civic. It was Dr. Chetty Jagan that started the University of Guyana. We understand on this side of the House how important tertiary education is. And it moved from being Jagan's night school to being an institution that everybody is coveting right now. Mr. Speaker, the PPP instituted fees, and we had a reason for that. Throughout the period of the opposition's tenure in government, where many of these opposition members sat as ministers, they said nothing while university fees, whether they were tuition fees or facilities fees, raised year after year after year on the university students. I'm going to lay over for the House. Minister Indar did it, but I believe it is important for us to have in front of us so that if we have to be urged to remember truth, it is there in front of us for the rest of the debate. UG Council hikes tuition fees by 35%. This is the Guyana Times, sir, of August 7, 2017. And let me tell you what that means for a student, Mr. Speaker. In 2014, the last year of the PPPC's whole financial year, A student who was doing the Bachelor of Education paid $127,000. By the time the coalition left government, it was $220,000. $220,000. Where were your tears then? How much you loved these university students then? A Bachelor of Law was paying $300,000 when the PPP left office. The coalition changed that to $390,000. Bachelor of Engineering, $127,000. By the time the coalition left office, that student was paying $220,000. A pharmacy student was paying $250,000. By the time the coalition left office, they were holding their bellies to pay $340,000. A student of medicine was paying $500,000. By the time they left office, these honorable members here, who have all of a sudden developed this heavy sensitivity to the students of the University of Guyana, were paying $590,000. Mr. Speaker, these are the real figures. The People's Progressive Party is here based on promises made in a manifesto that we went to the people of this country and said, this is what we will give to you to improve your lives. And we were very clear in that manifesto. We got the promises we made from consultation, village to village, home to home, television to television station. And we heard what people wanted. And we said very clearly, we're going to find a pathway to remove the debt that students had already incurred, former students and current students, and we are going to make the university free in the first 5 years. And do you know why people are not worried? Because every other promise we made has been fulfilled. And so political parties have to stand with some amount of credibility when they speak. You cannot say in your budget, in your pre-campaign, say 2014, the APNUAFC, that we're going to double the cash grant and then get into office and abolish it completely, give reasons for it and expect people to trust you. The children of this country, the students of this country are aware and comfortable that before the end of our first term, the University of Guyana is going to be free. Mr. Speaker, I've heard
all kinds of things in this house. I've heard people put a percentage. Someone yesterday, some honorable member, I don't remember who it is, actually said there is a 1.7% allocated towards providing disposable income to the citizens of this country. There is no line item, for my dear citizens watching, called disposable income in the budget. A whole host of measures taken are expected to, one, lower the cost that people have to spend on their daily living, and two, allow them more money in their pockets. And I hope, sir, to, in this presentation, show all the various ways that this budget, at least through the Ministry of Education, is going to allow people to have, parents and families, to have more disposable income in their pocket, even as we build out a better and stronger future for the children of this country. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the school population was about 185,000 children. And the APNUAFC government spent $18.6 billion, about $100,000 per child. The freezer's gone on again, sir. And
That's okay, Minister. I don't know who told them to put it on. I instructed that it be off. Thanks.
in 2022, with the phenomenon of COVID, which across the world saw loss of children in schools, loss of school populations, we actually are able to have in the school population 193,000 children, more students, and we will be spending $237,000 per child. double the amount on each child in this country, our Guyanese children. And Mr. Speaker, a large part of that will be spent on civil works. And I want to be very clear. The APNU, when they first, in 2014, and this is perhaps, I heard the most curious statement yesterday by my learned friend, Mr. Region 1, the MP from Region 1, Honorable MP Mr. Cox, explain that because that is an extremely profoundly curious statement. Mr. Speaker, but I understand why he might be saying that. It might be coming from a philosophy. In 2019, $3.7 billion was allocated for the education capital budget. The coalition sent back 58% of that, $1.6 billion, because they couldn't spend it. They couldn't spend it because it's not important. Access and building schools and institutions is not important. That's what the APNU represented in this House within the last 24 hours. It's a philosophy, sir. In 2017, they dedicated or allocated 8% of the education budget to capital works. In 2018, 6%. In 2019, 9%. In 2022, the PPP allocated 23%. In 2023, we're allocating 33% of the education budget towards capital works. And that is because, sir, providing access to the children of this country is hugely important to us getting quality education delivered to our children. This will get us, Mr. Speaker, closer to universal secondary education. And let me say what it is we plan to do. In Region 1, we have to build a school at Hosororo, Quebana, Waramuri, and Northwest. We are rebuilding. That was burnt by arson. Surely we can condemn that act without any prevarications and ambiguity. In Region 2, the Abram Zool Secondary is going to be finished in about 3 months. In Region 3, we're building 2 secondary schools, one at Tushan and one somewhere on the West Bank. In Region 4, we're going to complete the Yarrowcabra Secondary School that was begun under this coalition government, and never finished. And we're going to complete the Good Hope Secondary School that was again begun under the coalition government and never finished. And just so that we could touch a little bit on the race issue introduced earlier, those projects were not given to any African Guyanese contractor. They were not given to any African. They were not procured. They were not given. They were given, if we talk about friends and family, the Yarrowcabra project was awarded on the 31st of December 2019. On the 31st of December 2019, when the election was scheduled for March 2020. Mr. Speaker, those schools were never completed, as a result of which we still have children. We got the funding for these schools, left the drawing and everything. 7 years later, there are children who finished the entire secondary program and couldn't benefit from those schools, given to friends who are not African Guyanese contractors. We will also be building a school at Prospect for 1,000 children. That is Region 4. In Georgetown, we're going to be rebuilding the St. Mary's Secondary School, the St. George's Secondary School, the Christchurch Secondary School that was just destroyed by fire, the North Rheinveld Secondary School, which was also destroyed by fire, is being rebuilt. We're extending the St. Winifred Secondary School. We're extending the East Rheinveld Secondary School. In Region 5, we've achieved universal secondary. In Region 6, we're building a school at Oriala. In Region 7, we're building a school at Jawala in the Upper Mazaroon. In Region 8, we're going to be extending the 2 dorms, Paramakatoy and Cato, as well as looking at accommodation in Kopinang. In Region 9, we're building a school at Karasabay and extending accommodation facilities as well as classroom facilities at Aishalton. Region 10 will benefit from, like all the other multilateral schools, our World Bank funding that will see us rehabilitating all the multilateral schools. This is our capital program. I could tell you that out of my head. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, all the dorms benefited from a condition survey where we know exactly which sink isn't working, which tap isn't working, which toilet is broken, which stairway needs to be repaired. And we know across this country where it would make no sense to put down a school if we don't do teachers' quarters. And so teachers' quarters and are being built across Guyana beginning this year, and dorms are being repaired beginning this year. Additionally, sir, all the PICs that are under construction will be completed by this year. Mr. Speaker, this is our capital program. The APNU AFC built not one single secondary school in their 5 years. This is 2.5 years into this government. Not one single secondary school in the 5 years was begun and completed under the coalition government. I just forgot to mention that St. Rose's in Georgetown will be completed by the PPPC. Mr. Speaker, I want to be very clear on the issue of procurement. All of these programs, all of these buildings, all of this capital works, this is how it's done. We put an ad in the papers. We say, hear ye, hear ye. Anybody who wishes to come forward and bid the lowest to do these matters, come. It then goes to the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, where I haven't gone to any, but I understand there's a public opening of the tenders. Then persons, not the same people on every project, different people selected through a lawful process, go through who is the most responsive bidder that is lowest, and then they award to that person. That is how procurement is done in this ministry. And we are opening any procurement of any item in the Ministry of Education, I would say in the government, but I want to speak for this ministry to say you can come and examine it. We don't see that back, any of that. We don't see that back until it comes to cabinet for no objections. I have no clue who was given and why. We could ask about why someone who appears to be lower in their bid didn't get it, and there are usually responses for that. Mr. Speaker, once we build these, we will be able to deliver the change that these communities need. So when we hear in this house about equality and equity, we have to match that with action. Those are very nice words, and they look extremely nice as a headline. But you can't come here and lecture us on equality and equity, and you couldn't build a single extension to a single high school anywhere in this country. Anywhere in this country. Earlier this morning, the honorable gentleman from Region 9, Mr. Henry, the honorable MP, said that he was disappointed that the Ministry of Education had not done anything for there are 3 levels. For the people watching, there are 3 levels of education in the secondary public schools, in the public school system: nursery, primary, and secondary. I repeat, I would be embarrassed if I were you too. I understand it. I would be embarrassed if I were you too. I repeat, the APNU AFC did not begin and complete a single secondary school in this country. Not. But you sent back $1.6 billion in 2019 alone. I didn't go back to the other things. This year, we spent 99% of the capital budget, thanks to the PS of this ministry, Alfred King. And 98% of our recurrent budget in the ministry. Because not spending means not giving service. Spending means people get served. So, Mr. Speaker, when we deliver these institutions and teachers in the teacher housing, you are going to see that result in a few years. You're going to see students graduating and people being able to manage their lives and participate in this thriving Guyana in a way that you never prepared them for. The opposition never prepared them for. Mr. Speaker, I agree. If we build a school and we don't deliver, what's the point? So we all have to be invested in this delivery. The Guyana Teachers Union, the leader of the opposition members, the parents of this country, the Ministry of Education, the education officers, we all have to deliver. But if we don't deliver, then we need to get to a table and sit down to find out why. We got to sit down and find out why. If you want us to talk about equity, I'll show you equity just now. Textbooks, sir. Textbooks in 2023, we're going to spend $3.7 billion of textbooks, on textbooks. And this will allow us to give every single student in this country, nursery, primary, and secondary, all the textbooks they need, except for the enrichment courses. All the textbooks they need. But it's not only about money. It's not only about money. It's about how you organize that money. In 2021, we spent $500 million, a little bit above $500 million. But in 2021, in the midst of COVID in the world, in the midst of a big flood, we were able to give every single grade 6 child student in this country all the textbooks they need. You have teachers in this house. They can tell you about it. And you want me to tell you, sir, how that helped? This is how it helped. If you look, and this is how equity works. If you look, Mr. Speaker, at the students who are in the dorm right now, the students who are in the dorm at Turkine, in grade 7 and 8, there are 21 students going to Queen's College, the national schools, QC, Bishop, St. Roses, and Joseph's. No. They've always been termed like that. QC, Bishop, St. Roses, and Joseph's are national schools because wherever in the country you are, if you get the right marks, you get placed there. Then you have list day schools. We need to move away from it. We need to move away from that. We need to go to a place where every child could go to the school near to their home. But we also need to make sure we invest in every school and make sure the standard is the same at every school near to their home. Mr. Speaker, in 3 years on the APNU, the children in grades 9, 10, and 11, the children in grades 9, 10, and 11, number 9. That's equity. Because we gave textbooks, because we gave a cash grant, more children from places all over this country were able to score grades to get into the national schools. If you don't understand how that's equity, we could chat outside. I'd be happy to sit with you. Mr. Speaker, these will also be procured according to the national NPTAB laws. Mr. Speaker, school feeding. School feeding, sir. The APNUAFC in 2019 spent $1.8 billion. 3 out of 50 nursery schools in Berbice received it. 3 out of 50, 3 over 50. 0 schools received it on the East Bank. Mocha didn't get breakfast on the APNU, AFC. And Miss Nima, teacher Nima, could tell you in this house that Mocha didn't get breakfast in their primary school or a nursery school. 0 schools in Linden, in Region 10. 0 schools in Region 10 received breakfast under the APNU AFC. That's your equity. Mr. Speaker, under the PPPC, so Mr. Speaker, Mr. Ramjatan is saying, my honorable friend, is saying that we now get money to do it. You got $1.8 billion in 2019. I'm getting $300 million more. But in my government, the PPPC, All children in grade 6 will get it. All. That's equity. That is non-discrimination. That's equality. That is care for children. You don't even know that your neighbors in Barbies didn't get this. You couldn't care less. Through you, sir. You couldn't care less that your neighbors in Barbies didn't get this. You see, Mr. Speaker, this is how we know that the AP and UAFC had no care for the sugar workers. You took away the parents' jobs and you started a breakfast program. The least you could have done was to make sure those children benefited from the breakfast program. Mr. Speaker, I don't know. Look, I understand this emotion. If I were them, I'd be ashamed too, sir. I would draw ashamed if I were the APNU. I would be highly embarrassed of my record also. If you can own your record, then it might tell you that you were on the right foot. Mr. Speaker, every child in this country, 89,945 children will receive breakfast, and that will put more disposable income in their parents' pockets. So there is no line item called disposable income, but this $2.1 billion will go to parents for their children's breakfast meals. On that program, we're hiring 241 cooks and 9 monitors. Do you know how the APNU did it? And I'm willing to give you the names. Let's talk equality now. You give me your names, who were cooking for you, and let me give you my names. That is where you will see equality. 241 cooks, and we have said very clearly, whether you're a comrade PPP or a comrade PNC, if you don't cook for the children properly, nutritiously and quantitatively good, you will have to come off the program. This is how you prepared breakfast. One person in one community was cooking for the whole region, and when they need mayonnaise, somebody from Georgetown jumps in a bus and drives to Denhamstel to give them mayonnaise. That is why it was never on time. That is how it was done. That is how it was done. Mr. Speaker, we would remember too that the AP and UAFC said that they were abolishing the Because We Care cash grant. This is after they promised on the campaign trail not only to do it, but to double it and give it to private schools. They said we're abolishing it so that we could give buses and breakfast and bites and boots and growing shoes and something else. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, APNU had given to villages 21 boats. In 2022, the PPP has given breakfast, cash grant, and 47 boats, 2 years after we're in. 5 years, you gave 21 boats. 2 years, we've given 47 boats. 18 buses in 2020. 18 buses. So we heard yesterday from Honorable Amanza Desir that they left the buses to rot. We received, I think the day the honorable member was referring to would have been the PPP. We didn't. We've been giving buses even before the AP and you came in. But we came in and met 18 buses. 18 buses. The other member who said, oh, you could take all the David G buses and drop the children to Christchurch was being But the honorable member knows better, sir. And there's a better spread. As I said, sir, there's a better spread. We're seeing children from the hinterland communities that never before were able to pass. Like I said, 21 children in grades 1, in Form 1 and 2, people under us, got the textbooks, the teachers, the videos and all that, and 9 in 3 levels under the APNU. Mr. Speaker, we also heard, and I have to say this benefited, the results of these children are directly correlated to the distance education program that we had. In 2020, we had started a learning channel when we left. And you know, the AP and UAFC said that they would use it for political purposes. I would be happy to lay over after this, the record of that. And when we came in 2020, 5 months after COVID had hit this country, there were 40 programs done. There are now 1,800 programs done in 2 years. 1,800 programs, all the grade 6 concepts and topics, all the grade 5 concepts and topics available now to all, 85% of the Amerindian villages who never had the learning channel before. We gave TV, satellite, and solar power. And in the next 3 months, it's going to be 100%. Mr. Speaker, we have the largest television channel dedicated to learning in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean. Boast about that when you come out of the country. And all of these programs are on YouTube. It was hidden when we came into office. I don't know why you would hide education content. Mr. Speaker, we started also Edu Radio. It is now the largest radio station in the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. We're actually better than NCN. We say that with great pride. The Learning Channel is run by Anisha Muhammad, a young lady in this country, and the Edu radio station is run by Philip Williams in Guyana. I'm extremely proud of that work, sir. And that is the work that has allowed us to reach people where ordinarily, unless you could afford a fancy lessons in Georgetown, you could not be reached. You didn't need money for this. Tell me why you didn't do this. Tell me why you didn't do this. You said we got the money. This needed brain. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member raised the issue of special education needs. I want to address it very quickly. We have appointed an assistant chief education officer, Keon Chung, and a senior education officer, Nikoya. All 13 Sen schools are undergoing currently a condition survey, so we would know exactly what they need. And we plan to put a Sen classroom accessible in every region, so it's going to be more than 1 Sen classrooms in every region. We also started for the first time a specialization at CPC, where for the first time they have teachers specializing in special education needs. 303 teachers. You had CPC closed when I entered this office, and you did not start a SCN course. Say that to the nation. 303 teachers are registered on that program. We are going to also make the disability center that is at Turkine, the Caribbean's Diagnostic and Treatment Center, which is how it was intended to be. Additionally, sir, CPC is going to, for the first time ever, they're going to be able to graduate more than 2,500 students because of initiatives taken there to go fully, although not solely, online, and have entered 1,893 students when before they could have only done 500. So we're going to have more teachers at a better quality. Mr. Speaker, I will close by saying this. Yesterday we heard about Charmaine. Charmaine is a single mother. She has 3 children. They're going to school. She has this part-time job. Charmaine is a single mother with 4 children, has the part-time job, wanted and was getting these hardships. Charmaine would have been a single mother with 4 children under the APNU, but she would not have gotten cash, $40,000 each, $120,000 for her children. She would not have gotten breakfast for her children. She would not have gotten textbooks for her children. She would not have gotten transportation for her children. So Charmaine's individual condition needs to be looked at. But Charmaine is better off under the PPPC any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Mr. Speaker, if the APNU
continues to say that they cannot support this budget, they are essentially saying to the people of this country that they don't want them to get $40,000 per child. They do not want schools to be built in the hinterland. They do not want special education needs children to be served. They do not want buses and boats for the children of this country. They do not want trained teachers. They do not want more teachers. They do not want teachers' quarters in the hinterland. We in the PPP are thankful that our vision is not hitched to the APNU's wants and needs. We would like you to come along with us, and I'm inviting you here openly. Anytime you're ready to work with me, I'm ready to work with you. Open invitation, come anytime. There is much we can do together for the children of this nation. But I'm also saying this to you. If you're going to cut your nose off to spite your face, if you're going to try to harm the children to gain cheap political points, we will do this alone, because our duty is to serve the children of this nation, and serve we shall. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is the Honorable Member, Ms. Jurita Finance. You may proceed just as the Deputy Leader takes the chair. You're going to start here, right? She is starting.